How we doing, folks? My guest today is going to be former U.S. ski team member and former U.S. ski team head coach, Garth Hager. And in this episode today, we go through and discuss Garth's career as an athlete and his time coaching as well. As an athlete, Garth spent several years on the U.S. ski team, was a four-time national champion, four-time World Cup podium athlete, had one World Cup win, and was the Pro Bumps and Jumps Tour winner. After Garth's career as an athlete, or I should say during Garth's career as an athlete, he also had the foray into coaching. He started a freestyle camp, Camp Revolution, which yours truly went and attended for several years. And then he made the transition to coaching full time, where he was the head coach for Steamboat Springs Winter Sports Club, and then being an assistant for the U.S. ski team for several years, where they had great successes. And he was honored the Medal of Ikkos by Hannah Kearney in 2014 for his help, obviously, and influence during her career. Garth then spent a little time as the head coach for the U.S. ski team before also becoming the head coach at Aspen as well. And in this episode, we discuss a lot of his career, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about Garth that I didn't know and insights into his career, and it was a lot of fun being able to have this conversation with him. And I really hope you folks enjoy. Thanks. Garth, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on and getting to chat with me. First off, for me, it's just awesome to be able to talk to you and in this kind of just looking back on my career as an athlete and as now as a coach and everything else. I mean, you're such a huge inspiration and influence on me. I mean, I remember wearing the Camp Revolution t-shirt here. I mean, you were one of my first coaches, and really just have a ton of respect for you and everything you've done for the sport. And it was actually really funny. I was talking with my brother around the Olympics, and not many people know that I even have a brother, let alone that he had some things to do with freestyle and everything else. And he was like, man, if only duels were in the Olympics for Garth when Garth was around. He would have cleaned up. And I was like, that was coming from my brother, and it was really funny and just, very true. I mean, one of the dual masters, G Money Hager. So thank you so much for taking the time and coming on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Bobby. Good to catch up, I'm sure. Yeah, glad to see that you've got the passion and you're, following through with athlete to coach. It seems like the natural progression to, take what you've learned and pass it on to others and, be beneficial to the whole sport.
Yeah, that's the hope, and learn some of that from you. I mean, one of the things that one of the reasons I continued to stay in the sport was part of your passion. You were always so passionate day in, day out, and really making it an enjoyable experience, at Camp Revolution or just in general. Like, it's funny, was going through the garage when we got back from the season, and I have a bunch of, signed posters, Garth G Money Hager, and, always had that passion and always really shared that with the younger athletes, and I think just most of the people in the freestyle community. So one of the first things I was kind of just curious about was, how did you find your way into mogul skiing and into freestyle? Because you got into it a little bit later than most, right?
Yeah, yeah, I probably didn't. I did my first mogul contest when I was 18. I didn't even know they existed, really. I grew
Yeah.
up in the Northwest. I know there were the 70s, it was bigger, Sunnyside sliders at Crystal Mountain.
Mhm.
And I just kind of, when I was in school, I wanted to be like a hot dog skier, like I see magazines, people doing back scratchers and daffies, things like that. I wanted to do cool tricks like that. And so, we would just build jumps and try to link jumps as we ski down runs. And then I ended up being like a ski instructor when I was in high school. And then a friend was like, "Hey, there's a mogul contest at Mission Ridge in Washington. Want to go do it?" I'm like, "Hey, what is that? What do you have to do?" And,
Yeah.
as we're driving over there, I'm trying to figure out, oh, you have to do two tricks, two jumps. Okay. And they have to be different. So I was trying to, sort the rules out. And I think that first event I was third or something in juniors. I'm like, wow, this is actually kind of fun. There's a lot of people doing this, sport that I didn't even know was around. And then, kind of finished out the season, went to junior nationals, and discovered, a whole realm of people from all over the place doing this sport. And I jumped right in, did summer camps up at World Mogul and in Whistler.
Hmm.
Learned a lot from
Right.
like Cooper Desovich, Steve Faring. Well, kind of got
Very,
hooked.
yeah, very cool. And you
Yeah.
were a pretty quick learner because I mean, you ended up making the ski team pretty quickly after your time getting into the sport. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You know, you had almost a 10-year career on the U.S. team and getting into it at a little bit of that later age. It should give hope to some of those out there that find a new sport. You know, not necessarily narrowed into one, but kind of branching out, finding something fun and finding that joy and talent for it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Just, figuring out what you need to do to make it down the hill, make it count, try to stay on your feet. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, what were some of those things when you first kind of made the ski team and kind of finding your way? What were some of those challenges and goals and passions that you had?
Um, Kind of like you said, I made the team pretty quickly,
Hmm.
which was, you set yourself a goal, to make the ski team. And
Hmm.
then once you make it, I think it's tough that you have to keep adjusting your goals, so that you keep going to the next thing, and adding all the steps to back up your goals. I think that's the hard part. That takes a lot of maintenance,
Hmm.
daily tasks like, oh, what am I going to do today, this week, this month, breaking it down into manageable steps so that, oh, I can do this. This next step is very easy. It's small, but it's
Hmm.
getting me forward instead of like, oh, I want to try to be Olympic champion. That's a big step that, something not to focus on. When you get there, you'll get there. But if you do all the groundwork, you'll get there. And so,
Now,
I saw the sport change quite a bit. When I
yeah.
started, it was all upright aerials, and now it's all mostly inverts. And rarely do you see a straight up 720 anymore.
Yeah, very rarely, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And so, did you enjoy that progression and everything else? I mean, that fun aspect of how much the sport continued to kind of progress, as you say, during your time. Was that hard to keep up with, or was it something that you enjoyed?
I enjoyed it. Yeah, definitely. I like the creativity of trying to come up with different tricks, that nobody else was doing, but, it was weird combos that you could do. I remember, I think Toby Dawson had the Royal Flush. It was a
Yeah.
360. I think it was maybe a Daffy Iron Cross spread
Hmm.
in there, or
Yep.
a twister. I don't know.
Yeah. I think
Things
Daffy
like
Iron
that,
Cross
just
spread, I
coming up.
think.
Yeah, I think I was always trying to work on the 360 with a Zutnik grab pulled into a mute grab. But
That's
yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah, that creativity and um so I mean you were always just looking back on some of these consistently on the team and World Cup winner in duels, 4 World Cup podiums and multiple. Now the one thing I couldn't track down, which I was trying to, I had some old videos and stuff like that. But bumps and jumps. That's always a hard one to find. And for like my digging, I saw at least one bumps and jumps. But didn't you win the tour one of the years that they did bumps and jumps?
Yeah, I think I
Okay.
won, must have been 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, the Pro Tour,
Yep.
bumps and jumps. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I was trying to dig through, and I thought that's what that was bumps and jumps in 2000. Okay.
Yeah, that one was always a hard one because it kind of the schedule aligned with the World Cup schedule.
Sure.
So I was unfortunate enough not to have some World Cup starts. So I did the Pro Tour that year.
Ah, okay.
And I did some World Cup starts at the end. So it's
Gotcha.
kind of bouncing around between the two teams. Yeah.
And how did you think like what was the comparison for bumps and jumps and World Cup and everything else? Because I know there's been some argument, Cam Boyle back in the day getting some fame from doing the Pro Tour and everything else, and how that compared like to the World Cup tour and those little differences there. I mean, it would have been nice if they were able to line up those schedules a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been a good show for sure. Because I think, the Pro Tour had good TV coverage,
Hmm.
whereas, it was challenging to see just like in the US, just the US events televised,
Hmm.
whereas, you might get two events in a year on TV, maybe the Olympics, or definitely the Olympics,
Hmm.
but then Pro Tour would have a little more broadcast, I think. So different models, I
Right.
guess, or different marketing.
A little bit more of that exposure. And I think Nationals was always on ESPN, which is kind of funny now if you would tell that to the newer generation. Like U.S. Nationals, I always remember was on like ESPN or ESPN2 for a long time there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy to see how much the sports changed and kind of evolved, and
Yeah. Now you can
streaming I
watch
think
it,
definitely helps it.
stream it, yeah, online, and you can see it almost live, hopefully with, commentary sometimes.
Definitely. So just for you, in your competitive career, like you touched on a little bit earlier, kind of creating some of those smaller goals and everything else, did you always have that thought process, or did some coaches or people along the way
No.
kind of help you not to just aim for the mountaintop, kind of show you the path of building those steps to get there?
Yeah, definitely. US ski team staff, they did a
Hmm.
great job at, having, goal setting meetings, kind of breaking down what it would take, meeting with the sports psych to kind of take some steps that way as well to try to be in a, better performing mindset in the
Hmm.
gate. Um, because, I had wicked nerves many times in the gate, when,
Yeah.
like, oh, I got to get a fifth place at this event if I want to do something else, move on. So, yeah, I think a lot of that just kind of calming that down and taking the steps to develop a program, I think is key. One of the main things that, I got out of that is kind of you want to have your base, build a base and then add to that all the extras, so that you don't have a weak point. You're trying to, replenish your, I guess, your faults with, higher performance in those areas
Right.
to be a
No,
little
that
more even across the board.
that makes sense. So build that foundation and then kind of add layer some of that on there.
Yeah.
Now, uh, the things you learned competitively, how did that help you as you kind of transitioned after your skiing career into coaching? Did you immediately know, like after you decided to retire from sport, that you wanted to get into coaching, or were you kind of trying to weigh your options and see what you wanted to do?
Well, I had kind of already been coaching as a competitor, like in the summers,
Hmm.
as you know, Camp
Camp
Revolution, World
Revolution,
Mogul.
yeah,
I must have been 8 or 9 years coaching while I
yeah.
was competing.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of a natural progression just to try to share what you've learned with somebody else, tricks that you've learned, strategies. And so it was a pretty easy transition to get into coaching.
Hmm.
I think I got recruited when I was at nationals my last year competing by Steamboat. Like, hey, come coach for us. I'm like, oh, okay, sounds good. I like
Very cool.
Steamboat.
Yeah,
Um,
Steamboat's awesome.
yeah, then I got lured in by Donnie St. Pierre to coach the NORAM team while I was still coaching Steamboat. Like, so I took a NORAM team with the Steamboat crew and US team.
Oh wow. Gotcha.
Yeah, that
How
was
so what's that experience like, kind of jumping, you go right in from high level competition, and then you're dealing with right into the US, balancing the US team and then Steamboat athletes, and that had to be
yeah,
quite the challenge.
that was just because when I retired from competing for the US team, I was like, oh, I don't want to ever coach the US team. I know these people too well, or, I know the system too well. I want to do something else, take a step lower and move from there. But then after a few years, you kind of like, oh, yeah, you kind of work your way up and you're like, oh, I can work with these guys and I can still help them out quite a bit. You
Hmm.
kind of get a kind of outside perspective from it after a little separation,
Yeah,
instead of like having to coach your, I guess your teammate that you're rooming with. It's definitely a lot different than, when you're actually the coach.
sure. Yeah, no, that's got to be a tough
Mhm.
transition to be able to make, but I'm sure a lot of those, you're dealing with some younger athletes and everything else. I mean, I was trying to list out the athletes you've coached over the years. I mean, it's a laundry list of talent and success, and it's looking back on, Hannah Kearney, Deneen, Brian Wilson, Show, DeGravio, Dylan. That's even the newer, Brad, Brian, JBK, Eliza Outram, Shannon Barkey, Michelle Rourke, Jillian, and as you like, some of those you skied with, some of those coached only exclusively. Heather McPhee, Keaton, Sophia. It's the Discos, Holt, Landon. I mean, it's a pretty remarkable career of athletes that you've been able to help along the way. And what kind of was that journey like? Because you had a couple years there in Steamboat, And I think Morse was on Steamboat at that time. Is that when he
Yeah,
made the
yeah.
team?
Michael Morris,
Yeah.
Eliza Outram, they
Hmm.
were both there. Yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah, it was
hard
good.
to it's hard to remember.
Yeah, lots of different characters, coming through and different personalities.
Hmm.
Everybody learns a different way. And I guess the one thing I found successful is just be patient with people and,
Mm,
know that everybody learns a little differently. So the more different ways you can explain things or demonstrate them, they might pick it up. And just being patient with, they might not get it when you say, do this or that.
sure.
But if you give them some time and talk to them, you'll figure out how they learn.
Hmm. And then probably that helps like be able to build that trust and everything else, right? Like, okay, this guy's not just telling me what to do. He's giving me
Yeah.
a few different ways to make it actually work.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a coach, when you start to see a little improvement in whatever you were kind of describing, and you're like, oh, they kind of caught on to that. That's kind of that one key element that we can develop and move forward with.
Hmm. Now that makes a lot of sense, you know. So for you during that time period and through your career and even your career today, what continues to kind of drive you? What are some of those driving forces you would say?
Drive, well, personally, like doing things that I enjoy, trying to find enjoyment. And that can be anything from, getting out, riding a bike, getting on the river, things with motion, balance, uh, things that are challenging but rewarding at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, building your base and then adding fun to it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it always, I don't think in all our interactions at Camp Revolution and everything else, I don't know that I ever saw G Money in a bad mood. You know, you always seem to be easygoing and always in a good mood and excited and it always I would say resonated with the athletes and certainly with me that that kind of attitude that you always had towards life and enjoying and being able to challenge yourself. And you always seem to love to be outside. I mean, Oregon's a beautiful place, and I always remember like off days at Hood, you would go windsurfing with some of the kids at like Hood River or the Punch Bowl or hike
Yeah.
here, there, or whatever else, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's about having a experience with wherever you're at, whatever is going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Camp Revolution was fun because we got to be creative, like, oh, let's start a camp from scratch and add some rails to the moguls or throw a half pipe in next to your mogul course.
Yeah, I mean that was a crazy. I mean, those few years that was an awesome camp, and you had the three Phils and Evan Divig, and I think the first year was what Shelly McGill, right? And
Yeah, I
Jeremy
think so.
Bloom
Yeah. Alex
and
Wilson.
Alex Wilson as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those were good camps. Those were fun times, and I think who we had Eric Iberg, I think was did the video one year, right?
Yep. Yeah. Did the video. I think Cody was another guy doing video.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. We had some
Yeah.
good camp videos come out of that.
Yeah, some really good camp videos, and the course setup was always awesome in there, and that was a fun super fun camp. So you enjoyed that creativity and being able to make some of those changes.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah. That was probably maybe not as competition orientated as like a
Hmm.
serious mobile camp could be, but it was more just adding skills and, diversity, I guess.
Yeah,
Because free ride was definitely taking a I don't know, big momentum shift.
yeah,
And that was kind of about the same time that inverts were starting to get added to moguls too, or soon
yep,
after.
yeah, kind of right around there.
Yeah.
And did you so because what you had the last year I think they did bumps and jumps. They had kind of what was a little bit of the Camp Revolution theme. I think it was a rail into moguls. There was one mogul jump and then they had like a park jump at the end of it. I think was the last year that they did it. I don't know. Do you remember that?
I remember something kind of like that. I remember
Mhm.
they can't remember which event it was, but yeah, they had something at Steamboat once that had rail in the moguls to a jump to something else. Yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what would you say kind of during your career, who were some of those inspirations that helped you as an athlete and as a coach and everything else? Like who really did you lean on or really supported you, or would you say inspired you through your journey?
I think some of my earlier coaches, just with their mentality and just kind of how they laid out the fundamentals of mogul skiing kind of made sense to me. Like Steve Desovich, Cooper Shell at World Mogul Camp,
Hmm.
um, Jeff Good. He was my first U.S. team coach.
Hmm.
He was, really good at, laying down goals and strategies, things like that. Donnie
Interesting.
St. Pierre had, awesome dad jokes all the time. I tried to follow in his footsteps, much to my wife's displeasure. But
Donnie had the dad jokes.
yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. Scott Rawls, good to work with.
Hmm.
Lasse brought a different international flavor to coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And how would you say that that atmosphere kind of worked on the staff of, you know, I'm sure you got a lot of different personalities, not only athlete wise, but also like coaching wise, and how did those interactions and everything kind of work to make the team better as a whole?
I think just having multiple coaches is a good aspect, because everybody has their strengths, their personalities, and how they respond to people. So you can get a good balance, or
Hmm.
sometimes it can be a little off. Sometimes if it gets one sided or another sided, and I think as a staff that the more that you can kind of meet together and talk about your strategies and kind of where everybody's at, I think that can kind of help out develop people a little quicker,
Hmm.
um, and kind of give them a more well-rounded experience as they go through the process.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, and I think that clearly showed in how the athletes performed and everything else. Now, one of the main athletes that you worked with is, probably the greatest of all time on the female side, Hannah Kearney. And what was that? How did that experience and kind of journey start with her? Because I mean, you were her main coach for a very long period of time.
Yeah, I guess I let's see. I guess I coached her a few times here and there because when I started with the ski team, we would just kind of coach whoever came down next. You would
Hmm.
coach them, or whoever had eyes free would coach somebody, and then eventually we started to divide people into training groups
Hmm.
so that you got a little more consistent exposure to one coach all the time and could have a little better development through the day and not get thrown around here and there with whatever one coach saw and is highlighting to another coach. And so
Sure.
yeah, kind of going into the 2010 season, I kind of became her main coach. Um, and that was a good experience. Let's see, she's
I'd say
definitely
so.
a character, and very good at taking feedback and dialing that into performance.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
I would
that makes
often
it
call her a robot.
a robot. Yeah, she seemed to be very good at being able to take the feedback and the success there. I mean, what was that Olympics like for you in Vancouver?
For Vancouver, our whole team was basically trying to keep things as normal as possible.
Hmm.
Whereas I think the previous Olympics, the whole Olympic vibe kind of got blown out of hand, and so we were trying to we stayed not in the village because our mogul events are usually pretty early in the Olympics,
Hmm.
and so we had our own house. We brought our own chef from the OTC in Lake Placid,
Hmm.
so everything was fairly normal. We had our PT staying with us, and so we just took it as regular training days. And then we were trying to say, okay, here's your Olympic time. Like go to go to opening ceremonies, but then our event's on. So we need to
Hmm.
focus in on your tasks. And trying to keep it as normal and not blown out of proportion
Gotcha.
as it
So you'd
can
say
be.
a lot of that kind of happened from 2006 as the learning where things kind of the athletes were all in the village there and really kind of maybe a little more caught up in kind of the Olympic experience where you guys, all right, we got to adapt from that, kind of make that change. Let's make it like another World Cup, treat it as another event.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what can we do to make it a little more normal, a little more, just your task is to, perform your run type thing.
Hmm.
Not so much like, oh, this is the Olympics, go crazy. Yeah. Do something you've never done before. Yeah. It's more just, okay, let's have your best performance at the time that you're in the gate, at your time to shine.
Hmm. And that course seemed like it was pretty, the weather certainly didn't cooperate the most. I mean, it seemed like it was pretty soft and not like the most ideal winter
Yeah.
conditions, right? Wasn't the course pretty
Yeah.
challenging?
Every day seemed to change up there, it seemed, because they actually flew in a bunch of snow, like helicopter dropped snow to create the course.
Hmm.
And so at first there wasn't a lot of moisture in the snow, so your landings were just like sugar.
Hmm.
The first night of training was just awful landings because it was just mush.
Hmm.
And then yeah, for the contest, it was for the women's event, it was raining. And so that created another challenge, with I remember Shannon Barkey had a great, podium shot with her over mitts on. Like I think our glove sponsor Eau Claire made some waterproof over mitts to go over the leather gloves,
Interesting.
just to be more rainproof.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was definitely challenging, So the conditions, the speeds were changing. Sometimes you had to try to go faster because it was sticky and wet.
Hmm.
Um, and then for the men's event at that Olympics, it cooled off and got hard packed, to slush. So it was definitely always changing. That's the problem when you're not too high above sea level, coastal
Yeah.
range.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seemed like it was certainly challenging conditions and everything else, but the team, I mean, executed, and the results were pretty awesome there. I mean, were you up top? You were at the bottom for the
Yeah,
Olympics, or were you up top? The
I
bottom.
was at the bottom. Yeah,
Okay, gotcha. What
yeah,
was that? What was that experience like watching those athletes come across the line and get some of the results that they wanted to? I mean, I know it's tough, right? Because you have some athletes that reach that career goal or thing that they want to, and then you have other athletes that don't perform the way that they wanted to. It's never been a perfect day yet, as long as I've been in coaching, and I'm sure it's the same for you. On some of those days, athletes didn't do as well as they wanted to, and then
yeah,
others obviously accomplished what they wanted to.
yeah. It's definitely a challenge, because everybody's in such a different headspace at that moment. It's not like a normal contest because some people all of a sudden they have their whole family in the stands and different expectations kind of presented to them, and it's got to be tough to balance all that out and stick to what's good for you. Be in the moment. I think is the toughest time to have it on demand. Like, okay, drop everything, just do your job. It's
Sure.
tough to hone in that focus sometimes. But it was definitely suspenseful.
Mhm.
Standing at the bottom, I was running the video camera, taking some pictures as well. I remember seeing Hannah's run come down for the finals. I was like, oh, that was it. That's what she needed to do. But then I'm like, well, will the judges see that she had reached her performance that she was after?
Mhm.
That was kind of the suspense. I'm like, oh, are they going to give her the score, or did they see something entirely different than what we saw and what we've been kind of working towards?
Right.
But then she did get the score, so I'm like, okay, we're on the same page. Because it's always difficult, judges and coaches. We're
Mhm.
working on creating better performances. They're looking at critiquing. They're looking at the negatives, and we're looking at the positives. So it's always tough to meet in the middle
Yeah.
sometimes.
No, absolutely. They're always looking to pull something away wherever they can. What can they take off? Not much to
Yep.
take off from that run though. That was pretty epic from HK. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah.
was that was pretty cool to see.
And so was that, you touched a little bit on the differences just from 2006 to 2010, but what was for you personally in 2006 as a coach, like you kind of your first experience in the Olympics as a coach and everything? I mean, what was that like for you?
2006, I wasn't at the games. I was the coach at home.
Oh, you were the okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I was there.
2010 was your first experience then.
It was, yeah,
So what
yeah.
was that? Yeah, what was that like then? I mean, obviously the
Great. That
highest
was
of highs, and that
yeah,
had to be
success.
yeah,
Yeah, that was good.
yeah.
Um, and it was kind of like what we had set out to do, keeping things normal and normally trying to get somebody on the podium. Luckily,
Mhm,
we got three.
mhm. How much from being in the Pacific Northwest was able to kind of help you? I mean, that's kind of your neck of the woods. You're there. You're like, all right, yeah, the weather might be changing every day, but it'll all work out all right. I've had enough time up here and know that the how the weather changes, as you say, just being a little bit above sea level there.
Yeah. The benefit of having an organization is that no matter what the conditions are, they'll get the course going okay.
Mhm.
It's getting the landings chopped if they're icy or, adding moisture if the jumps are falling apart, icing them up. Um, I don't know. I guess just being adaptable.
Mhm.
You show up some days where it's frozen solid and you deal with it. Other
Mhm.
days are soft and mushy. Having some extra wax in your bag might help.
Yeah.
Um, and just extra rain gear,
Mhm.
dry
So,
socks.
yeah, exactly. So I know in was it 2014 at that Olympics, Hannah with another medal there, and she awarded you the Medal of Ikkos, right?
Yeah, the coaches award. Yeah.
What was that? That had to be pretty special and unique. And that what was that whole experience like in 2014 and going through Sochi? Obviously different. You're a little bit more, I would say, right, seasoned of being on the World Cup tour, and not that you weren't as an athlete, but as a coach, you kind of understand the athletes that you're working with a little bit more and everything else. And Hannah's in the middle of, one of the most dominant runs our sport's ever seen. So what was kind of the some of those aspects and like,
Yeah, that was great to be recognized for that award. Yeah, going into Sochi, yeah, Hannah was on a roar. Just I think she won 16 World Cups in a row,
mhm,
something like that. Some good streak after 2010. The only weird thing was going into 2014 was a new format that you know, we ran once at World Championships leading into it.
mhm,
So, it had the final, super final, and then
yep,
top four, another ski off. So, and not knowing what the pacing was going to be like, I think was, challenging for everybody.
mm,
Oh, go back up, or wait, now you have an hour, now you have a half hour. It's just hard to know exactly how it's going to play out and
interesting.
plan as much as you can. But yeah, that one was a different one as well. Just changing conditions, good venue.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, just trying to keep our heads on straight. But
Yeah, well,
we,
I knew. I mean, at least I had heard that the Russians were trying to make that course pretty difficult for to put in as much challenges for Kingsbury and Bilodeau and everything else, really trying to add some trickiness into that course. So I heard it certainly had a lot of difficulties to it.
yeah, it wasn't one where you just kind of let it run to the bottom. You definitely had to reel it in because I that was probably one of the trickier bottom sections that we had on tour. You
Mm,
land at the bottom jump and the bumps got big and they got big and round and I think they limited slipping too on that course. So
really?
they wanted to keep it large and challenging.
Hmm. It certainly, yeah, it's certainly was. I mean, yeah, it's interesting to hear those different things and how much those little rule changes affect, all the planning and everything behind the scenes, right? That extra run and trying to get that timing. I mean, it sounds like that would be sounds like that's certainly a real challenge. I mean, I know just with this last Olympics and trying to get that timing and you go from finals to everybody's taking the chairlift, and then it changes to now you're getting a snowmobile ride up, and what does that do with your lap time? Or who for some of
Yeah.
the athletes that want to be up top, right? Some want to stay at the bottom, or just kind of getting that timing. So yeah, I mean that sounds like it's would be a real challenge.
Yeah. Especially if you have a developed routine that you like to do between every run.
Mhm.
where you might walk around a bit and do your visualization and stuff like that. But let's say you get thrown into a gate riding up on a snowmobile where you almost fell off and fearing for your life, and then you're thrown in the gate. That can be a different experience altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's one of those. Yeah. And as a coach, you're always kind of second guessing and thinking, well, maybe we should have done this differently. You're going back through the notes you
Yep.
take at the end of the day of like, all right, I liked how we did this, but maybe did I talk too much in the gate? Did I, was I doing this? Should I did that? What was the vibe like? I don't know. At least that's me up there. I'm usually
Yeah.
up top, and I'm always thinking like trying to get them in the right frame of mind, figuring out that timing of that was the some of the challenges we had was trying to figure out snowmobiles and then waiting TV time, making sure the helicopter's in the right spot, and just the some of those behind the scenes things, right, that most of the spectators don't get to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. My last couple of years coaching, I would usually take notes after an event, to like what worked well, what didn't work well, and then come up with some notes for the athletes like, hey, this is where, I think you improved on, or, what do you think about where we could go from here for the next event? Like maybe tactic wise, some calls that we made that, could be changed, things like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more you can notate and move forward, the
Yeah.
better you can leave stuff behind instead of
No,
repeating it.
absolutely. So along your coaching journey and just journey as an athlete and everything else, what would you say? It's always fun to talk about the successes and the honors, the Medal of Ikkos and all that. What would you say are some of those challenges or failures or setbacks that you faced that kind of propelled you to the successes that you ultimately ended up having?
Yeah, I think, let's see, some of those would be like maybe into an event overconfident, I think is one of the setbacks, like
Mm.
thinking, oh, yeah, like I remember I went to a world championships in Whistler and I
Mhm.
told my aunt and uncle they didn't need to come up till finals time, because that's when they would see me. And of course, I blew out the first round, in duels. Uh, I regretted that one. Underestimated my competitor I was dueling, thought I'd just do some easy tricks, and I blew out of the course, I think.
Mm. Okay.
Um, yeah.
So that overestimating, so that'd be one of those that kind of overconfidence and everything else. I mean, so talking a little bit more about duels. I mean, how happy were you to finally see that in the Olympics, in the games?
Very happy. Yeah, I was battling for years on the we had a mogul working group
Hmm.
with coaches meeting with judges, and we tried to reformat some of the FIS rules. And we got earlier on we got duels as a possible format, but they
Hmm.
wanted to choose one or the other. So
Mm.
we wanted both. So
Right.
eventually they arrived at that. Yeah, I guess the next battle would be for team events and things like that.
Yeah. No, see if we were able to get that in, that would be pretty cool to be able to have that. And
Yeah,
so, would you say as an athlete or as a coach, you had a different perspective when it came to singles compared to duels for you?
yeah. I guess that would be one of my faults as well. Like in dual moguls, I guess the first duel I did was a World Cup in teen
Hmm.
or something, and I was super nervous about seeing the other person next to me. So I put actually like blinders in my goggles, like a horse, so I couldn't see to the sides.
Hmm.
And besides being unable to see very much at all, it was I don't know, I actually kind of liked seeing the person next to me, um,
Okay.
just because you have a visual reference for speed.
Hmm.
And so I I always like to try to be the first one down when I was dueling. And so if I saw them there, I would just go faster, just go straighter, go turn less, go farther off that jump if you had to. But I think for me, like single moguls was about perfection, because you're judged on a scale and you're trying to not make mistakes. I found that puts a lot of pressure on yourself not to make mistakes, so you're thinking like, oh, don't do that, instead of just being positive and like, oh, just go, just be in the moment and ski, do your tricks. And like when I ski duels, it was more like, okay, do your two tricks and go fast. and the rest will hopefully take care of itself because slop might count. You can step out on a funny turn or have a couple hard pole plants,
Hmm.
um, and if you get across the line, maybe 70% of the time you'll win if you're the first one down and you did your tricks. So
Right.
that was kind of my mindset for duels, and so I kind of tried to pull some of that into my single skiing, but it was always battling against perfection was like the hard part.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas duels, you kind of had to forget about it because there was somebody racing you, right, right beside you. So you wanted to beat them down across the line.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's been, I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the highlights. The last couple of years, duels has been absolutely, absolutely crazy. There's been
Oh yeah,
some madness in duels, and it's it's going to be interesting to see what rule changes or what they try to do to come up with some kind of safety. You got guys landing four bumps down and just going
yeah,
absolutely insane. I don't know if there's a, especially if there's an Olympic medal on the line. I'm not really sure if there's a fix for that, but
yeah,
I'm sure they're going to try to do something to make it a little bit safer for the athletes, whether it's extending the pad or something along those lines.
yeah, yeah. Somebody's going to put the back of their helmet through the bottom jump or something.
No, it was pretty crazy. There's been a few these last couple of years for sure. So
Yeah,
after your time there, in 2014, you transitioned to the head coach, right?
yeah, yeah. Head coach for the U.S. team.
And what
Um,
would you say that experience was like compared to, obviously you've been assistant, you know the game, and how much does that role kind of change in having to now cover all kinds of different areas? I'm sure it's a lot. I've had Scott Rawls on here before and Park Smalley, and just they talked about all the different challenges that as a assistant coach, right? You're kind of just working on getting the athletes where they need to be. Maybe you're not working on that bigger picture of the administration and travel and physios and doctors and all those kind of different aspects.
yeah, it's a lot. Definitely more than I anticipated.
Hmm.
You got all the admin. Dealing with travel. You've got to organize all your coaches, your groups.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's way more than I expected. And I'm probably not the best at delegating. I'm like, oh, we need to do this. I'll do it myself. Sometimes that takes too much energy away from everything else, and you're trying to stay scheduled ahead of time and work on
Hmm.
next year already while you're still in the current season. Yeah, it's a lot,
Hmm.
and trying to be coaching at the same time.
Right.
So it's almost like it's a better admin role than coach and organizer. It's challenging. You
Gotcha.
definitely need to take a step back um, on the coaching side so you can take care of everything else.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of those different challenges. I mean, that was one of the things that Rawlsey kind of, had talked about. It's like, wish I got to coach a little bit more.
I know, I know that's what you like doing the most. You don't like doing spreadsheets and forecasting and all this other stuff. Yeah, that's dealing
Yeah.
with baggage losses and
Right.
delays.
In a given day of flying to Ruka, you lose all the
Yeah,
bags and you got to start.
that was a good experience. I think three of us once got our stuff in Ruka out of the whole team. So we all had to share. I remember Emiko had high heels were her travel shoes. That's challenging when you're walking to meals
Yeah, yeah, I
through
can
the
imagine.
snow.
Yeah. Especially in Ruka or someplace like that.
Yeah, yeah,
No, yeah, it's classic. And there's one yeah, Park Smalley was saying that not only because you had all the different disciplines like aerials, ballet, moguls, and he said he was also like um I can't remember the exact, but he was helping checking the Russians in as well. Like they kind of traveled along or something as well, and they'd show up to the airport with like 100 ski bags. And it's
yeah,
like that just sounds like absolute, it's chaos enough dealing with, you know, 10, 12 Australians and trying to get all their stuff dialed in and all that. And, to think about, 150 ski bags from just, the different disciplines and everything else. I mean, sound like
yeah.
a quite the headache for sure.
That's where patience pays off. Yeah, Yeah, there's definitely some travel nightmares out there. I remember we did a 36-hour trip. We went the wrong way around the world, going from, I think, China back through the US to Europe, where everybody else just hopped the flight direct to, I forget where maybe Scandinavia we were going.
Okay,
Yeah, that was
fun
a
one.
grueling one for those that completed it.
For those that were able to make the trek. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
crazy some of those travel days and everything else. You know, it's some of the stuff behind the scenes that people don't really think about or everything else. But there's a lot of logistics involved, right?
yeah, yeah. And hearing, Park and those guys talk about, before cell phones, how to keep track of people. Like I remember I showed up in Lake Placid and uh, had lost my wallet during traveling or something and had to, um, scrounge some bus fare to make it to Lake Placid from Montreal. That was before cell phone, It was
Right.
just hoping somebody shows you up or remembering somebody's number to call them on a payphone.
Yeah, that had to be crazy. Like just,
Yeah,
no, all right, you're going to show up at this time. Hopefully they show up and they have all their ski bags and they have everything else. I mean, dealing with lost luggage then had to be crazy going from one event to the next and just pay phones and everything else. That had to be
yeah.
quite the experience.
Yeah, I remember waiting one time for my plane tickets to get mailed to me so
Mhm.
I could catch a flight later that afternoon. And they showed up the day that I was supposed to leave. Back then we had paper tickets that you had to present to
Mhm.
get on a flight, no e-tickets. So it was a little stressful. Like, I hope it comes so I can meet my team.
Oh, it's classic. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
luckily those things have changed a little bit to make some of those things a little bit less stressful. You know, it's definitely
yeah,
that connection time and everything. And now you got Wi-Fi on the planes, so
yeah,
you can even be getting work done while you're on a 36-hour flight
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, yeah,
So, talking about some of those challenges and everything else, and just looking back on your career in skiing and coaching, I mean, what we've touched on a few of your favorite moments, but do you have a few more kind of moments that you really looking back on enjoyed or come to mind for you?
Just a lot of the travel, going to cool places. Lots of great people involved in freestyle. That everybody's always friendly, willing to help out. Like lots of times we'd have a get together on the mountain. Like I remember, I think we had a good one in Meiringen.
Mhm.
Arranged like, especially when we're traveling with aerialists and we had ballet skiers back in the day, so you'd have three disciplines. We plan a quarter pipe get together after an event or something up on the hill, and everybody would show up and start hitting a jump. Those are always pretty fun. We did another one in, I think, La Clusaz in France. Kind of the late afternoon jump session. Everybody cheering each other on, trying to get creative, do different tricks. I think that's one of the things that comes out of freestyle skiing is just kind of a lot of creativity. Because you're trying to do these little wiggles down a hill and hit some jumps. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of moving parts. It's like rodeo on skis. You're trying to balance, do different things. It's always a challenge, and when you can kind of cut loose and hit some jumps with friends, that's kind of the rewarding part.
Yeah, no, that's super cool, and it is one of the things that draws you to it, right? Is that style, and it still exists somewhat. I mean, especially like here in the U.S. or you have how big the country is. You have people from the East that ski a certain way compared to far West or Rocky or Intermountain and everything else, and being able to use those different turn techniques or styles and give you that creativity, and there's a million ways to kind of to skin the cat, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
all how can you be efficient and do it with your own style. Yeah,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, Garth, I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time. This has been great to be able to catch up and hear some insights and some stories. And this has, yeah, been awesome. Thank you.
yeah. Thanks, Bobby. It's always fun to reflect a bit and remember some of these great times.
All right. Bye, everybody.